Could Ronny Mauricio turn out to be the best of the baby Mets? I'll discuss that and more on today's edition, Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by the most comfortable shorts out there. Of course, that's Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter the promo code LockedOnMLB for a free water bottle with any order. Ronny Mauricio looks like a stud. Small sample size, of course, but he has gotten a hit in each of his 5 games played with the Mets, and he's currently hitting .421, 8 for 19. He has stolen 3 bases, has not been caught yet. He's played good defense at second base for, again, a small sample size that we've seen, and he just looks like a player that could be on this Mets team for the next 7 years as a starting player. He looks awesome, and we can't read too much into a 5-game stretch, particularly when 2 of those games came against the Nationals and the pitching that we just saw. But this is a prospect that I think suffered more prospect fatigue than pretty much anyone in the Mets system. A guy that was just around for a long time. He was just considered a top prospect early. People were paying attention, and he went through his lumps throughout his minor league career, and I have doubted him as much as anyone. Okay, my history on Ryan Mauricio is checkered. There was originally just saying time and time again that I wanted the Mets to trade Ronny Mauricio. That I thought Ronny Mauricio presented the most value to the Mets franchise as a trade piece. I am on the record time and again saying that. I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I own it. That was my opinion all of 2021, 2022. I saw a prospect that had a ton of just flash to him. Guy that can hit a home run farther than anyone else in this system, but also anyone who was watching him play on a consistent basis just griped about his swing decisions, his chase rate, and he felt like a hitter that could get exposed at the next level, a hitter that might not ever walk, a guy that could be a Javi Baez type with his lack of plate discipline. That was what everyone believed to be the case with Ryan Mauricio. And overall, he, when you look at like OPS plus or WRC plus, these stats that, generate a league average hitter and compare you to that league average, and how many runs of value are you adding to your team above that average? What percent above that 100 average are you? And even this year, his WRC plus after a great month of August in AAA was 107. So only 7% better than the league average hitter there. But then you peel back the curtain a little bit and you just focus on what the player brings when you're watching games. I think there's sometimes where guys, unfortunately, for whatever reason, the stats don't value them. Kyle Schwarber is a perfect example. He's a negative F-WAR player this year, but it's 40 bombs. And for a fact that the value he brings with those big-time home runs outweighs the bad batting average and the defensive concerns when he's out there on the field not DHing. There's a give and take there. With Ryan Mauricio, yeah, you could say, all right, didn't walk enough, maybe didn't tap into quite enough game power. Maybe you want to see some more home runs out of him in AAA. The bottom line is he hit 292, and he got on base at a 346 clip. He had a 506 slug. He cut his strikeout rate under 20%, something I wasn't expecting. He stole 24 bags. He hit 23 home runs, and now he's stolen 3 more. So they've got 27 stolen bases on the season. And also he hit 30 doubles. in AAA. Oh, Matthew Brownstein on Twitter notes that of 16 batted balls that Ronny Mauricio has in the majors, he's hit 3 of them with an exit velocity over 110. 3 more of them, including those 3, over 100. So 6 over 100, 3 over 110, 8 over 95. Again, you have to acknowledge that any ball that was hit 110 was also hit over 100 and over 95. But the point is, 8 balls out of 16 have hit over 95 miles per hour. 6 of those 8 over 100. 3 of those 6 over 110. The dude scorches the baseball. His average exit velocity is 92.3 miles per hour. That's on line Fernando Tatis Jr. for the season. No, completely different sample size. We're talking about 16 batted balls compared to a full season for Tatis. But you see the athleticism. It jumps off the screen. Or if you have the pleasure of seeing him in person, that gets to my checkered history with Ryan Mauricio, because I've mentioned before, I saw him in Double-A last year and was blown away. He has superstar potential in a way that maybe Brett Beatty doesn't. Maybe Mark Vientos doesn't. I think Francisco Alvarez does. And if you had to ask me right now who's going to be the best of the baby Mets, it's got to be the dude that's hit 22 home runs, or is it maybe 23 now? It's 22 or 23 home runs in his rookie season and plays catcher. That's the guy that's going to be the best. But at the same time, Ronny Mauricio can challenge him. And it's the upside. I think the floor of what Ronny Mauricio might bring might fall off. But then again, I would have come into this season, or I did come into this season, saying the Brett Beatty had the highest floor of any of these guys. And then I watched the floor drop out on him this season. So we never really know what these guys are going to be, especially until they get to the show and you finally get your eyes on them. Now, at one point in time, Ahmed Rosario was supposed to be the starting shortstop of the Mets for a decade. That didn't happen. Dom Smith was supposed to be the starting first baseman. You never really know till these guys come up. And you can't judge it on 5 games. But I'll tell you what Ryan Mauricio has showed us, he's a player that you want to watch, that you want to tune in to see. And I'm fascinated to figure out where he ends up. What position does he play? Is he the second baseman of the Mets? Is that really his final home? Because I think the athleticism is the part to me that makes this guy so exciting, because I've called him right field Ronnie. We saw this year Fernando Tatis, a former shortstop, make the transition out to right field and become arguably the best right fielder in baseball based on some of the metrics. Could that big arm for Ryan Mauricio play out there? The height? It's crazy because both Beatty and Mauricio are listed at 6'3", and I feel like Mauricio looks like Ellie De La Cruz. Like, I think he looks like he's like 6'6", 6'7". He's just a freak, honestly. And that is some clay the Mets have to model here that really could, fit so many different roles. That's what I want to get into next year, because the Double-A Rumble Ponies are just filled with talent to dream on. And it really makes me wonder, not that all of these guys are going to pan out, but sincerely, how do you look at the Mets' future and figure out how all these pieces are going to fit together? It is a fascinating puzzle to try to, build. And I'm going to do my best to discuss that in the next segment. Before we do, though, today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs are the most comfortable shorts out there, particularly their stretch khaki. Okay, these are shorts that are so versatile. They're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. And you can wear khakis anywhere. I wear them on the golf course. I wear them out to dinner with my wife. Wear them to church. And then, you know what? The crazy thing is, after coming back from the links or coming back from church, whatever it is, when I get home, crazy thing about them, they're so comfortable. I'm not just trying to rush to take them off and put on a different pair of shorts. just because they fit way better than regular shorts, and they're not made of that stiff, restricting cotton. Okay, they're made of this cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get that slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs also use the anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. If you want to try Bird Dogs, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter the promo code LockedOnMLB for you get a free Bird Dogs water bottle with every order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or promo code LockedOnMLB for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that. The New York Mets play the Minnesota Twins at 8:10 Eastern Time on Friday night. Catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Well, your Binghamton Rumble Ponies, the AA affiliate of the New York Mets, are red hot. They've won 8 of the last 10 games to put themselves a half a game back from the Somerset Patriots, the Yankees AA team, who won the first half and are in line to win the second half. But if the Rumble Ponies can close that gap and pass them, they would be the second half winners. Although it really doesn't matter because the way the playoffs work in AA, you have a first half winner and a second half winner. But if the first half winner, and that was Somerset, wins both halves, then it's just whoever had the second best winning percentage in the second half. And right now, the Rumble Ponies are 6 games up on Boston's AA team. So they're looking like a team that will make the playoffs. But a great day today in Binghamton. Or actually, I think they might be on the road. Regardless, they swept the doubleheader, and we'll talk about the first game in the next segment because there was a pop-up pitching prospect. At least that's how I'm going to describe him. A guy that we haven't really had on our radar who threw a no-hitter in a 7-inning game. And I want to really talk about who this guy is and how he actually is a legitimate prospect for the Mets now. But I want to focus on all the stud position players. Luis Angel Acuna had 2 home runs on Wednesday. He has 1 of the 2 RBIs in game 1. Game 2, he goes 1 for 2 with a walk and a sacrifice fly. He's really starting to play well down the stretch. Meanwhile, Drew Gilbert went off. He didn't play in the first game, but in the nightcap, went 3 for 4 with 2 home runs, 3 RBIs. He now has 18 home runs on the season across 110 games. Now that's starting off in high A, 6 home runs, 6 home runs with the Astros AA affiliate, 6 home runs with the Mets AA affiliate. He also went through a terrible slump when he first got promoted to AA with the Astros. So you really look at his season and the way he's performed and the fact that he's hitting .317 with the Mets now with a 4.0 or with the Rumble Ponies with a 4.08 on base and a 5.48 slug. This guy is legit. I mean, there is an off chance that Drew Gilbert has 25 to 30 home run pop here. Maybe I shouldn't even call it an off chance. There's potential here for 25 to 30 home runs from Drew Gilbert for a guy that is known for his glove in center field, who is known for his motor and how he plays the game so hard. It's crazy because honestly, I ranked Acuna as the top prospect in the Met system in my top 10 because I just think that he's had a larger sample size of that success at the AA level. And I think it's more of a sure thing that he's going to be an above average big leaguer. But Drew Gilbert's right there. And the crazy thing is Jet Williams is looking like the guy with the most upside out of all of them in high A. So this farm system just suddenly looks so good. Also, you have Kevin Parada now up in AA. I had him ranked as my 6th best prospect, I believe, in the Mets system. Hasn't had the best season with the bat. Still don't know exactly how he's going to hold up with the glove long-term behind the dish. But now he's homered in 3 of his last 5 games in Binghamton. So he's starting to find his swing. And he's certainly a guy that shouldn't take too long in the minor leagues. Now the question is he a trade piece for the Mets? Did I learn my lesson on Ronny Mauricio and calling him a trade piece 2 years before he ends up coming up? And then all of a sudden you're eating those words? I don't know. There is a legitimate possibility that in the not too distant future, the Mets have Alvarez and Parada as an amazing catching tandem. You never know. But, to see him homer, and he did homer in that game today, along with Gilbert hitting those 2 home runs. So good to see him starting to find his swing. Meanwhile, you got Jeremiah Jackson, who they got in the Dominic Leone trade, former 2nd-round pick by Billy Epler when he was with the Angels, who can play all over the diamond and has an 811 OPS in 31 games with the Mets organization and has 6 home runs. So he looks really good. And I think about all these guys in AA, and I start to forecast next year and wonder, all right, can these guys all make it to the show? And that's not necessarily likely. But it just is an interesting thought exercise as you sort of take a tab on where the Mets are and what they could look like next season. Alonso at first base. Second base, who is it? Is it Jeff McNeil? Is it Ronny Mauricio? Is it Luis Angel Acuna by midseason? Shortstop, it's Lindor. But suddenly, not that you'd ever want to see Lindor go down, but the Mets actually have some exciting guys who can play the shortstop position with Acuna and Mauricio. Third base, Beatty. Is he the guy? You would think so. Mauricio could also grab that spot. Could we see a world where it's Ryan Mauricio at third base and Luis Angel Acuna at second base? That's a possibility. Jeff McNeil might just be an outfielder now because there's so many infielders with promise. Is he going to play the left or is he going to play the right? Is Starling Marte going to be good next year? McNeil can play either spot. You got Brandon Nimmo in center. Although if Drew Gilbert finds his way up, I don't think that they would bump Nimmo from center next year. But by 2025, is Drew Gilbert the starting center fielder and Brandon Nimmo's playing left? That's a possibility. And then you have Mauricio, who you're still trying to find that home for. Acuna, who you don't really know exactly where he's going to play because right now he's pretty much just playing shortstop. You'd imagine he's probably going to be the second baseman of the future, but then here's Mauricio. So you just don't know. And then Jeremiah Jackson, not saying he's going to be some all-star, but he could be a really nice utility man who can play everywhere. You already mentioned Parada could back up Alvarez. That's not even talking about Mark Vientos as a potential DH option. So you add all those players together. Alonso, McNeil, Lindor, Nimmo, Marte, guys who are under contract for next year. You could throw Narvaez into that mix as well if he picks up his player option. Alvarez, Beatty, Mauricio, Vientos. Those guys really have nothing left to prove in the minors. Could we see a Vientos traded or something like that? I'm sure it's a possibility. Could Brett Beatty get traded for a really good pitcher? I don't think that's going to happen, but who knows what the Mets are thinking about their organization right now. You add all those guys up, you throw in if Acuna and Gilbert find their way up to the show, and either Jackson or Parada, that's 13 players, 14 altogether. But you could say Parada is still in AAA. Jackson is your utility man off the bench. You have Gilbert, who's maybe taking time from Marte in the outfield, or who knows. Acuna could be playing at the middle. Like, there's so many options for this Mets team. I think that's what makes this offseason so interesting because the Mets are going to make some signings, but you got to be careful. And I don't know if they sign any position player beyond a one-year deal. I really don't think they should. Because I think they're in this position now where you just got to wait and see what you have. Because you also have Jet Williams, who has made a mockery of high A and is likely going to end up in double A before too long next year. I don't think he's going to be up in 2024, but can we really rule out Jet Williams in 2025? The Mets are in a great spot now with their position players. And the funny thing is, I'm starting to like their pitching more and more in the minor leagues as well. And that's what I want to get to next because there's a guy who not only threw a no-hitter, he's now not allowed to hit in 2 starts in Binghamton. So we'll discuss him next. Before we do, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. So the New York Mets had a pitching prospect throw a no-hitter on Thursday. It was Joander Suarez. He actually threw 6 no-hit innings in his first start in Binghamton. So now it's 13 innings pitched in AA. He's not allowed to hit, just allowed 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. He's been amazing. Obviously has a 0 ERA up to this point. Now you look at what he did in high A this year, you see the overall numbers of 5.08 ERA, and you think, yeah, how good can this guy really be? But if you know your prospects, and Mike Mayer of Metsmerize knows the Met system better than anyone. So seriously, check out Metsmerize. He wrote a great article on Suarez that I pulled pretty much all this information from. So really want people to check out what Mike does over at Metsmerize, because he is the best at this. But as he notes in the article, in this dough hitter, 11 of the outs came on the ground. A guy who can touch 96 with the fastball, but is living around 93, has a 5-pitch mix. He had started to make a little bit of a name for himself in the Met system, and then needed Tommy John surgery in 2021. Missed almost all 2021, almost all 2022. Only pitched 21 and a third innings last year. He also, of course, missed the 2020 season due to COVID shutting down the minor leagues. So a guy who has not been able to really get his career on track and establish himself. And that's what he's done this year, because look, he's over 100 innings pitched. And for a guy coming off, obviously, it's now some time removed, but still, this is his first full year off TJ. To get him over 100 innings, that's big time. And he pitched to a 2.72 ERA across his last 8 starts in Brooklyn in high A, and striking out a lot of batters and not walking too many. And he has, enough pitches and hopefully a good enough fastball to be able to pitch deep into games. He's a really interesting prospect the Mets have here, and they got to decide what to do with him. Okay, he's Rule 5 eligible, so the Mets might have to add him to the roster. They could try to sneak him through, but this is the exact type of guy that a team would just grab, and they'd throw him in their bullpen, or if it's a team like Oakland or something who just doesn't care, they put him in the rotation and see what happens. So the Mets might have to protect this guy, but you just look at their overall pitching depth. And Christian Scott made his return on Wednesday. 2 innings pitched, only 1 hit allowed, 3 strikeouts, no runs. He's got a 2.58 ERA and 11 AA starts, and he has 72 strikeouts to just 8 walks. That's a strikeout to walk ratio of 9-1. It's absurd. Dominic Campbell has logged a ton of innings in the upper levels of the Mets farm system. Mike Vassal's knocking on the door in AAA. You have Tyler Stewart and Blade Tidwell in AA, and now Suarez as well. So next year, you imagine your AAA rotation is Vassal, Scott, and Hamill, and maybe Budo, who looked really good his last start at the big league club. And then your AA rotation is what? Suarez, Stewart, Tidwell, not necessarily in that order. But yeah, there's actually pitching depth in the Mets farm system for the first time in a very long time. And we'll see, because some of these guys are going to end up in the bullpen. And, the Mets might not need as much pitching as we thought, or even position players. And I do wonder, considering all the talent the Mets have right now, if David Stearns does become the president, which is what all the buzz is right now, is he going to look at what the Mets have from a small market GM mindset, who now has resources, mind you? But is he going to be able to say, look, Steve, let's just throw all the money at Yamamoto. And that's kind of it. Now let's just grab that one big ticket free agent, sign some 1-year deals, fill out the depth, and trust that those 1-year deal guys, they're going to get hurt at some point, and they're going to open the door for playing time for some of these kids on both sides, the pitching and the hitting front. And the Mets have depth in their farm system to cover that, and guys that can excel when they get their opportunities. So it really is an exciting time, not for the team on the field currently in the major league level, but when you really look at the future, the Mets are in really good shape right now. I truly do believe that. Speaking of, the team that's on the field now, though, they're playing the Twins this weekend. If you're going to watch a game, it's Kodai Senga Friday night. It's becoming the one real appointment television of Mets baseball. It's getting to see Senga continue to finish off what's been a sensational rookie season for him. So we'll see how many strikeouts he gets. He got a dozen last time. Will he match that again? Who knows? David Peterson versus Kenta Maeda, game 2. Then Tyler McGill versus Pablo Lopez, game 3. It is interesting to see Peterson and McGill now getting a full run of the rotation. They don't have to look over their shoulder, and maybe that's helping them perform a little bit better. But it's Mets baseball. I think at this point we know what this team is. It's a team that isn't going to do much winning. They're obviously out of the wild card race entirely, but they got some young players to watch. You're still following Lindor's path to 30-30. Alonso try to get to 50 home runs. Nibbo to 25 home runs. And, we'll see what the kids do this weekend. Should be a lot of fun. And then after that, it's straight spoiler season, which we'll be talking about on Monday for all you everydayers. The Mets have a schedule chock full of teams that are competing in that wild card race right now. And they'll have, their ability to have some say in who ends up grabbing that spot or those spots. Regardless, though, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets this week on Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. If you want to catch every pitch of the Mets' hometown broadcast this weekend, you can do so with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets.